It is well, it is well with my...
Today I'm going to cover a step-by-step tool that we can use, talk about learning how to validate one another, and introduce you to one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 13 from David. Welcome to session 3 on Soul Health, looking after our whole beings, our minds, our emotion, and our relationship. In the last few days, as I've been chatting to people, the feeling of uncertainty is something that many of us are becoming familiar with. It seems that our world changes from the time we go to sleep till the time we wake up in the morning. And so I've been asked for a specific tool on how to deal with it. So before I move on to another topic, I'm going to share something really easy with you, a psalm written by David that ignites hope for our souls. And I'm going to chat about validation, an underestimated tool for building a healthy relationship with ourselves and with others. Remember that this can be a difficult time and it can be a time of growth. One of the things I love about studying scripture and psychology is my continual discovery of how many links they have together. Many concepts in the Bible written years ago have been proved by modern research as good practice for emotional health. One of them is the value of forgiveness. Another is how our thoughts and behavior impact our lives. The Bible also shows us that it is not necessary to hide any thoughts or feelings from God, which has a parallel to the tool that I'm going to introduce today. So the topic today is uncertainty, again, and combining that with hope, and some thoughts about this pesky little thing called worry that seems to arrive uninvited into our thoughts, and how we can up our validation skills. Uncertainty is often an unrecognized trigger, and it's a button that gets pushed, causing anxiety. Psychologists recognize the role of what is called short-term avoidance of uncertainty, and we do this when we engage in worry behavior. Worry keeps us busy. The problem is that it keeps us busy in a really unhelpful way. Worry behavior is the process of beginning to believe that worry is necessary, important, useful, and that we are being responsible by worrying, and that worry is even safe behavior. The problem is that when we engage in worry behavior, even though it's really a comfortable habit and we have ways to justify it, that we should be worried about our particular worry, this worry behavior creates a loop and actually increases our anxiety. And interrupting that loop is hard work, and it's also worthwhile. This is where concepts need to become practice, and this is where many of us are tempted to stop the work. We like to learn new things, but application is more difficult than just hearing about new concepts. So let's see how we go with a simple tool from a group called Anxiety Canada. It's interestingly called Befriending Uncertainty. And this doesn't mean that we like uncertainty. It just means that we stop avoiding the fact that uncertainty is part of our lives. There are, of course, many other options available, but I like this one because it's research-based and it's easy to remember. It's an acronym called ROLLING, capital R-O-L and then a small I-N-G, and it applies to rolling with anxious thoughts, which might sound dangerous. The Bible tells us not to worry and not to be anxious, and I agree with all of that. However, there is a difference between acknowledging our thoughts and feelings in order not to give them power instead of pretending that they're not there, which actually gives them more power. Denial turns our back on reality and prevents us from engaging in transformation. I love the Psalms because David often models to us a healthy conversation with God. Have a look at Psalm 13, where he holds nothing back, and he begins with these words. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death, and my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. Such an interesting psalm. One of the things I love about reading scripture is that it represents a life with God that is a real life, and life can be very messy at times. And this is a beautiful model of allowing ourselves to feel and to think without any form of censorship. And here is where the first step in the acronym comes. It is the R. The first step is the R that stands for recognize, and this is what David did so clearly. That has to do with recognizing our thoughts, like David did, uncertain about his future, and even recognizing how that affected his thoughts about God, holding nothing back. Your thoughts might be similar to David, or they might be very, very different from his. Yours might be uncertainty about financial security or a pregnancy, or that maybe you'll be married one day, or that your relationship that you're in might become more fulfilling. And maybe that's caused you to wonder where God is. Maybe you've been hurt and it feels as if God is not there, or you've somehow lost your access to Him. The list here is always a unique one and specific to our own unique lives. What's really important here is to give validity to our thoughts and to avoid comparison that prevents us from engaging in healthy recognition. Our list cannot be compared to anybody else's life. And very often when we look at our situation, focusing on all the things that we should be grateful about, again, one of those cognitive distortions, we actually don't give ourselves permission to identify our real thoughts, our real disappointments, and our real fears. Comparison is a useless endeavor. It robs us from being gentle with ourselves and gentle with others. Our lives are unique, and so our grief is unique, and so are our thoughts and our feelings, and all of it counts. And instead of comparing, even if we're comparing the real self to an ideal self that we wish we could live, what we can share is the experience of pain and the wisdom of compassion, and that's what builds our empathy. Often with really well-meaning hearts and a motive of love, we want to put a plaster on people's pain. We want to tell them to cheer up, explain how it's not really that bad. And this is what prevents us from validating them, which is a really important aspect of healing and a very important part of healthy relationships. Validation says your feelings count, your thoughts count. Validation is the recognition and the acceptance of another person's thoughts, feelings, sensations, behaviors as understandable ones. Self-validation is the recognition and acceptance of our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own sensations and behaviors as understandable ones. Learning to use validation effectively takes a lot of practice. And the expert on validation is not you. The expert on validation is the person that you are talking to. A great question to ask is, are you feeling validated by me? You might think that your skills of validation are a really good one, but the real test is what the receiver thinks. And receivers can really help us up our own skills. Conversation can be quite muddly. It doesn't follow this textbook format. And often my husband and I have what we call the do-over conversations, as we realize that we really got that one wrong. And so we do it over again after some feedback, particularly regarding becoming better at validation. The next step is the O, and it stands for observe. Observe what is happening. Aristotle said that knowing yourself is the very beginning of wisdom. And this step is exactly that. It involves noticing our needs and observing the feelings and the behavior that come from that need. The need for certainty might cause anxiety, a pressure on our chest, an accelerated heartbeat, headaches, clenching. It might cause tightness of breath or muscular tension. It might be making you irritable. It might even cause obsessive behaviors. I went through a time in my life where my desire for certainty began a really unhealthy exercise pattern. And in my early 20s, I used to run in a safe cul-de-sac where I lived. Sometimes really late at night, I'd go to sleep and then I'd get up and start running. Until one day I realized that I was running in circles and that none of it was actually fixing the root of my problem. I still love to run, but the reasons that I run have changed, and it's always helpful to reach down deep inside and say, why am I doing this? What are my thoughts about this? And what am I actually feeling in the moment? This is the process of observation. This is the last step. Sounds really easy, but it is perhaps the most difficult one. It is the step of the L, the let it go. I like to picture a balloon here. I hold it and I let it go, and often I actually just breathe it out. And here it suggested that you visualize releasing it, releasing your need for certainty from your body. This involves accepting the fact that uncertainty is part of life and that the need for certainty will never be satisfied, no matter how much we do and no matter how much we worry about it. We see David doing this as he cries out to God in the psalm. He recognizes his feelings, he observes them, he identifies his thoughts, his sorrows, he expresses what he needs. And then we see an incredible turn in the psalm, and he says this, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." And here is where our hope lies. Our hope lies in the goodness of God. And sometimes this whole process is not as quick as we would like it to be. It looks quick in the psalm, but notice David said, "How long, Lord?" And he said that 4 times, indicating that it wasn't a quick fix, but that it might have involved a very lengthy process. And next time I'm going to address the concept of what happens when this process is longer than we want it to be, and what hitting the wall looks like in the journey of life and our faith journey, and the courage that might be needed to actually get through that wall. Thank you for listening and for all your encouragement as I do this series, the likes, the comments, the shares, the feedback, and especially your private messages. They mean so much to me and they've helped me keep going. See you next time.